Hello, my name is Bonnie Louie from the Teach Now cohort. I observed two classes for this to pick up strategies on differentiation. My first observation was of a 7th grade humanities teacher. I stayed for about an hour of her 90-minute block. Her name is Haley Burns, and I could really say she is a star teacher. For a lot of the events for prospective students, she'll be called on, so prospectives know how classes run at our school. My second observation was a 10th grade global issues class. I also stayed for about an hour, a little more than an hour of the 90-minute block. That teacher was Miss Sarah Boulware. She is my mentor teacher, and she's also the head of our social studies department. The observation took place on Monday, the very first day I came back from my Chinese New Year holiday. Okay, so in the 7th grade humanities class, they had a first day back activity where students basically interviewed each other about what they did over the holiday and shared back what their partners did. Also, she gave a rundown of the week. Right now, the topic of instruction is imperialism and food, and so how the effect of imperialism on food. And so after the introductory task, or after the introductory lesson, the students were given their task of picking a recipe in their groups and tracking the history of that food and explaining how imperialism affected that food. So there wasn't much differentiation for product. All the students were basically asked to do the same thing. On the most part, there was some differentiation for interest because they could choose. The group had to negotiate and come to a consensus and choose what main dish and side dish they wanted to do. But I think mainly there was differentiation for readiness. So what I saw for readiness was basically just good practice. There were checks for understanding as she was lecturing, and so the kids are actually sitting in heterogeneous groupings for their normal class seating. And then there's also a lot of, when she's speaking, there's a lot of visual support because she really has what she's going to tell the students carefully planned because it's all supported by a PowerPoint. And there's text on that PowerPoint. So also there's a lot of modeling. So if she's saying for the introductory activity coming back from the holiday, she told the kids they had to tell each other specific activities, not just, oh, I went to Thailand. Instead, she modeled, I went to Thailand and I watched 2 sunsets. And so I was actually quite impressed for these 8th grade EAL students with the specific activities that they were telling each other. So I watched her lesson and the introduction. And then while the students were working in their groups, I saw that there was actually a great deal of thought put into her differentiation. First of all, there were flexible groupings. The students, as I mentioned before, they're sitting in heterogeneous groupings, but when they broke off to do their work, their group work for this imperialism unit, so today they chose their recipes, and by the end they had to come up with a specific list of ingredients. On Wednesday, or actually by the end of the week, they had to track the history and prepare a presentation on their food. They had to have a main dish and side dish, and on Friday they're actually going to the market and buying the food, preparing the food, and then inviting teachers over. So the groups, she actually worked with our curriculum coordinator. The groups were homogeneous groups, and they did not get to pick what country. So, and they were in different they were assigned a different country. Each group was assigned a different country, like Hong Kong, the Philippines, Vietnam. And they were specifically assigned that country based on the amount of available information. So if there was a lot of information available on that country, that was given to a lower group. Oh, something I forgot to put in the PowerPoint was there was also differentiation with graphic organizers. In order to lay out their recipe, there was a graphic organizer for the groups to use. And so that might make the task more accessible for the lower students and give them a chance to also participate. So in the 10th grade global issues class, I do have to say that I noticed that there wasn't as much explicit planning for differentiation. And I would say that's because we are an AP school, and in 11th grade, the students are all going to take that same AP geography exam. So in that class, they were finishing up video presentations from before the break on the Great War. And then this class was also the first lesson of the MUN unit for 10th graders. At the end of the month, there's going to be an MUN conference at our school for all of the high school. So the 9th graders, it's new for them. Last year, the 10th graders have kind of seen MUN already, so that's why their unit is shorter. So there's this fruits and vegetables activity just as a good warm-up and as a recap of the procedures and rules for MUN. So I actually saw how I could have done my lesson a little bit better, because she did allow for some differentiation for interest. The students were allowed to pick, whereas I separated the class in two and said, you guys are fruits, you guys are vegetables. My mentor, by contrast, she told the students, if you like fruits better, line up on this wall. If you like vegetables better, line up on this wall. So the students were allowed to choose. And then they were also, well, my students were also allowed to pick which fruit or vegetable they wanted to be. And the fruits or vegetables were actually analogous to their countries in MUN. So it's, instead of being a delegate from North Korea, they would be from Banana Republic or the Democratic Republic of Brussels sprouts. And so I think if I had given them the choice, the topic they had to debate was, are fruits better than vegetables? So if I had given them the choice, it might have been easier for them to write that opening speech. Although, honestly, my students, the test was accessible to all of my students. The output, for the stronger students, they just had stronger arguments and longer opening speeches. But the speeches, for the interest of time, they could have been anywhere from 20 seconds to 1 minute. Also, there was some differentiation for readiness. In both her and my class, we have our students sitting in heterogeneous groupings based on their WIDA scores. Where she has her desk set up in groups, I have mine set up in pairs. And then one thing I could have done better was, once they were in their groups, I just made sure everybody in the group said something, and she was very specific in the roles that each participant had to play in their groups. So they had to, in their presentation, not only did they have to specify, so in their groups, they had to make a recipe, and that's analogous to students writing resolutions for the committee to vote on. And so they had to convince everybody why that their recipe should be eaten, the name of their dish, the ingredients and the steps for making the dish. So everybody was responsible for coming up with that part, whereas I only required that everybody speak to present those different parts. Yep. Thank you for listening.